the approaches and perspective of social work. We have different approaches and perspectives to different things. So we'll be treating as approaches and perspectives to social work in this module. And we have the contents of the module to be one, we will look at the meaning of approaches and perspectives. And then we will also move on to different types of approaches, where we have existential approach. We also have feminist approach. Then under feminist approach, we'll be looking at liberal feminism. We also look at radical feminism, then socialist feminism. Then also look at the integrated approach. Then we move on to radical and Marxist perspective. So that is the point of view of radical and the Marxists So now we also look at Marx division of history, which will be the final subtopic for this module. So let's move on to the introductory part of the module, where we have that this unit, that is this module, is going to explore the different perspectives and different approaches that social workers must understand in order to efficiently establish effective collaborative partners with their clients um, or with their clients mostly. So let's put it that way. So a social worker's perspective is very crucial when building collaborative partnerships with clients in the profession of social work. So different perspective has helped the social worker to recognize and value the multiple strengths that clients possess. So it is when the social worker comes down to strictly or basically understand the perspective of the clients, that he or she will be able to uh, recognize and value the multiple strengths of this particular client possess. So by identifying these strengths, the social worker will be able to highlight and build upon them throughout the helping process. So this is just like an introductory part for us to introduce ourselves to what to the module approaches and perspective of in social work. So let's move on to the meaning of approaches and perspective now. We have it that approaches and perspective in social work, they provide essential theoretical and practical frameworks. That these frameworks guide professionals in understanding human behavior, assessing needs, and implementing interventions, while also addressing the interplay between individuals and their environment. However, the foundational person in environment perspectives, they views people as embedded in interconnected systems, including families, communities, institutions, and broader societal structures, where personal challenges are influenced by environmental factors such as poverty, discrimination, and the likes. Not only poverty and discrimination, we also have these environmental factors might also include cultural context, and also it might also include promoting holistic rather than isolated solutions. So let's move on to different approaches under this module. We have existential approach. Existential approach, we refer to these scholars as existentialist philosophers. They are philosophers that have made significant contributions to the field of social work. The perspective, that is the existential perspectives, helps clients to become more aware of how much their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors are shaped by social expectation and cultural conditioning. This approach is fundamentally philosophical. It mainly focuses on understanding the human condition and our place in the world and the meaning of being alive. In short, this approach is there to just enlighten the clients or individual. Let's use, for the sake of the course, let's use the word clients. So it's there to enlighten the clients, to enlighten them, to illuminate the clients more about and make them and bring their awareness to the fact that their thoughts and feelings and behaviors are mostly shaped by the social expectations. That is what is expected in the society, and also the cultural conditioning that they found themselves. It is not like that's the actual them, but more like it is the society that is shaping their thoughts and feelings and how they should react to things. So this approach is fundamental. It is philosophical in nature, and it focuses on the human condition and our place in the world and the meaning of being and life as a whole. So from moving on, we have from an existential viewpoint, our point of view, human nature is fundamentally opened. They are fundamental. Human nature is fundamentally open, fluid, and capable of an extremely wide range of experiences. That is, this individual, the individual is always in the process of becoming. We are continually creating and recreating ourselves through the very acts of existing. So this just like that is where the name comes, existing, through the act of existing. Then the existential approach. Uh, in short, this approach is there to make us understand that human nature is fundamentally wide and open and capable of wide range of experiences, whereby the more we give birth and we create, we are passing on these experiences and becoming the process of becoming and more becoming. Yes, let's put it that way. So now let's move on to the next approach, which is the feminist approach. So we are talking about feminist. This is not a new uh philosophy or theory in different fields. So this feminist approach is also we can also find it in social work as a whole, in the sense that it is a theory and also a methodology that profoundly influence and reshape social work in practice. So how does this happen? So this influence is what is commonly referred to as feminist social work, or social work informed by feminist principle. So a feminist lens or point of view is mostly visible across many domains of social work, including individual counseling, group work, organizational practice, social policy analysis, and social work research. However, we have we have three major recognized strands of feminist thoughts, and these three major recognized strands of feminist thoughts are: we have one to be liberal feminism, the second one is radical feminism, while the third one is socialist feminism. So each of these feminist perspective, and that is the liberal, the radical, and the socialist feminism perspective, they offer a distinct understanding of the nature and the causes and the forms of injustice and oppression that is experienced by women. So we should not forget that this theory is mainly focusing on the women part of the experience that of the women parts in the society, that is the experience of the women in the society. So now let's move on to these different strands. We are going to pick these different strands one after the other. That is the major strands that we recognize of feminist thought. We are going to pick this one after the other, and we'll discuss more on it. So the first one that we'll be looking at is the liberal feminism. Liberal feminism, it rests on the conviction that women have systematically denied equal rights. So that women have been systematically denied equal rights and opportunities, largely because they have been treated as a uniform social category rather than as unique individuals. So key historical advocates include John Stuart Mill, A.S. Taylor, Josephine Says Pierre, Mary Church Terrell, and the likes. That is according to Sonia 2008. So now this definition is from the fact that it rests on the conviction that women have been systematically, in one way or the other, according to the system, they've been denied equal rights to the opposite sex, that is the men, the opposite, that is the men. So they have been denied equal rights from them and opportunities. So which is mainly because they have been treated as a uniform social category. So now let's look at the core principles of liberal feminism. These principles include the following. We have one, to be education as the primary vehicle for achieving social equality and change. That is, education should be accessible to female. Gender should not be considered when we are trying to have when we are giving access to education. So education is the primary vehicle for achieving social equality. It's only the educated one that will be able to easily understand the concept of equal rights and equal gender equality. So we also have recognition that traditional women's work recognition that traditional women's work, so that is child rearing and housework, has been devalued as unskilled labor. And the third one is that strong advocacy for political equality through increased female representation in public life and decision-making positions. These are the principles of liberal feminism. That is, there is strong advocates that politically there should be equality, political equality, through the fact that women, the opposite sex, the women should increase in positions that are more decision making, that are more of decision making. So the fourth principle is active support for political candidates who champion women's interests. That is, political candidates that champion women's interests, there should be active support and massive support for such candidates. So we have moving on, we have radical feminism. Professionals under that, and we have it that professional social work aims to improve social functioning capacity of individuals, groups, and communities. In Marxism, a radical approach seeks to give a clear direction to the client in obtaining services. Radical social workers are more concerned with the professionalization of social work against the interest of clients and professional development, contrary to the interest of the client. So these radical social workers, and the main point to deduce from this is that they are more concerned with professionalization of social work. They are more addicted. They are more. Sorry. Uh, they are more closer to the fact that social work, the professionalization of social work, are against the interest of the client. So let's move on to the third strand, which is the socialist feminism. It's this socialist feminism. It's emerged prominently during the 1970s, and according to Jaga, we can say that socialist feminism represents a creative synthesis of Marxist historical materialism, that is joined especially from Marx and Engels. So with the radical feminist slogan, the personal is political. So core ideas of socialist feminists include the following. We have one, traditional Marxist class analysis that's largely overlook women because it assumes women did not have distinct relationship to the means of production. The second one is transforming the economic system, that is capitalism, which is therefore a necessary but not sufficient condition for ending women's oppression, but it is also necessary. We also have capitalism that actively reinforces sexism. In what way? And this is by creating a sharp division between paid labor and unpaid domestic labor. So now let's move on to integrated approach. This approach to social work adopts a holistic and comprehensive perspective in the sense that it combines multiple theories, multiple methods, values, and ethical principles to be able to develop long-term, coherent, and sustainable solutions to the complex problems that is faced by individuals or groups or communities and the likes. So this integrated approach is particularly valuable when working with children in conflicts with the law. So this approach is mostly effective and valuable when working with children and in conflict. So now an effective intervention cannot focus solely on the juvenile. The social worker, sorry about that, the social worker must also engage the family, the immediate community, and relevant social system to support such multi-level work. The practitioner often draws on social research, community organization, and administrative skills. So let's move on to radical and Marxist perspective now. We have it that there are several social theories that talk about social conflicts. Uh, these social theories, they all mainly have roots in the ideas of Karl Marx, which is why we refer to it as Marxist perspective. So Karl Marx in 1818 to 1883. The German theorist and political activist Karl Marx, he approached the Marxist approach stressed on a materialistic interpretation of history, a dialectical method of analysis, a critical stance toward existing social arrangements, and a political program of revolution or at least reform. So the work that a person does most significantly influences his social life. That is the kind of work that you do or that a profession that you engage in mostly influence the social life of the individual, of the person. This is the basic premise of materialist view of history. So according to Marx, the way in which work is socially organized and the technology in production strongly is used in production, that these ways or this system strongly impacts society. So he said that everything of value in society comes from human labor. So that is the perspective from Marxist theory and radical theory. So now let's move on to Marx division of history. And Karl Marx he was able to divide history into several stages, conforming to broad patterns in the economic structure of society. The most important stages for Marx's arguments were feudalism, capitalism, and socialism. So the greater part of his writing is about applying the materialist model of society to capitalism. This was the dominant stage of economic and social development in the 19th century, and we can even say it is still the most dominant stage of economic in this 21st century. So for Marx, according to him, the central institution of capitalist society is private property. The main aspect of capitalist system is that capital is controlled by a small minority of the population. So this capital could be money, it could be machines, it could be tools, it could be factories and other material objects that are used in production. So this capital is controlled by a small minority of the population, not many. It's just the few, those in power that are mainly controlling the economic part or the yes, the economic part of the country. So this type of economic social system, it creates two opposing classes, which is the owners of the capital, who are also referred to as bourgeoisie, and the workers, who are the proletariat. So this is if you look at this system, it is clearly creating some kind of boundaries or some kind of fence between where we have class between the capitalist and the workers, the owner of the company and the workers, who the one that the bourgeoisie are the one that are dominating and in power and is stealing dictating the affairs of for the proletariat, who are the workers. So this type of economic system, to continue with this type of economic system creates two opposing classes, as we mentioned initially: the owners of capital and the workers. So whose only property is their own labor time. That is, the workers, the only property they have is their time, the labor time, which they have to sell to the capital. They sell it off to the capitalists in order to be able to finance themselves and finance their family. So now let's move on to the conclusion, to the concluding part. So in conclusion, this module, that is module 9, has been able to highlight the rich diversity of approaches and also perspectives in social work, each offering unique lenses each of them offering unique lenses for understanding human challenges within their social, economic, cultural, and political context. So, from the Marxist and radical perspective, which critically examine class exploitation, material condition, and structural oppression, while advocating for systemic change and direct empowerment of clients, to the feminist approach, which also addresses gender-based inequalities through its liberal, radical, and socialist strands, and commits to women's rights, empowerment, and integration of the personal and political. So these frameworks challenge dominant ideologies and promote justice. So this will be the last this is module 9. We have one more class or one more video to